Hey everybody, this is Dave from EraSens.com, and with me today as a co-host is our friend Steve. We have a very special guest today. He's a former NHLer. He played 947 games in the NHL, including 520 with the Toronto Maple Leafs. He's got 215 goals, 261 assists, and 1,410 penalty minutes. Let's welcome in Darcy Tucker.
Hi guys, how's it going?
Good. How's it going, Darcy?
Amazing, actually. It's been tough with obviously with COVID and stuff going on, but we've been able to have our kids at home with us and spend a lot of time just sitting around the dinner table and talking about life. So it's been a lot of fun for us as a family.
Now, with COVID-19, have you done the whole COVID-20, which is like you gained 20 pounds during this whole process?
I've tried to gain more than 20, but I didn't have that far to go when I started. So I put on a bunch of weight post career, but I made a New Year's resolution to get my rear end back in shape. So we're working hard at it right now.
I've had that New Year's resolution for probably 6 years. It fails me every year.
Don't we all?
Yeah. So I'll jump right in it. In 7.5 years with Toronto, what would you say your most memorable moment is? I mean, it's the Toronto Maple Leafs in the early 2000s. It was crazy, right? It wasn't necessarily about the superstars of the league back then. It was about the best games. What was your most memorable moment as a Leaf?
Well, I'd have to say there's a couple. Number one, none of this would have happened if I didn't get traded to the Leafs. So I remember that vividly. I was in Tampa Bay. I was at lunch with Mike Sillinger and he got a phone call because back in those days they had the old brick phone and you usually had to leave it in the car, and he had his phone with him at lunch and his phone rang, and I actually thought he was getting traded, and he passed the phone across the table to me, and I was traded to the Toronto Maple Leafs. So that was probably the moment that started it all, obviously. And then I just think for me, the passion of the city of Toronto and the liveliness of the city when the Leafs are playing, it was immense. And I remember Saturday nights and playing against teams like Ottawa and Montreal, and just the way the city was and the way the people were about the team. That's what my most vivid memories of playing for the team are.
I think everybody knows who Darcy Tucker is. I don't care if you're a 16-year-old, Leaf fan today. Everybody knows, but I don't think a lot of people know that you started off in Montreal.
Yeah.
How was your time in Montreal?
It was fun. Like, listen, you get drafted to the Montreal Canadiens as a young kid. It's a pretty special moment. You don't get much hockey out in Alberta when I was a kid on the television set. So it was either you got the cross-country game, and it was either Montreal or Toronto. So there wasn't much back then for me to watch as a kid. So I saw a lot of the Montreal Canadiens and the Toronto Maple Leafs play hockey. So getting drafted by them was a lot of fun. My dad wasn't happy. He tried to, I think he tried to throw the TV out of the window of the house when I got drafted by Montreal, because he was a avid Toronto Maple Leafs fan growing up as a kid. And then, excuse me, obviously an Oilers fan being from Alberta.
Nice. When you were a Leaf, it's no secret that was at the peak of the Battle of Ontario. Like every regular season game felt like a playoff game. Every playoff game felt like a finals game, pretty much. Can you tell us about the locker room atmosphere for both playoff and regular season games against Ottawa?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I think for both sides. I think if you talk to anybody that played in that era for the Ottawa Senators, they would say the same thing. We were fortunate and lucky to have that rivalry and be in playoffs against each other. I think it really made for great television and great hockey, not only for Ontario, but all of Canada. I think, you have two main rivals in Canada now, and that's the Oilers and Flames, because they're in the same province. And then you'd go straight to Ottawa and Toronto, and facing each other 4 years in a row in the playoffs it was tough. It was hard hockey. It was physical. It was in your face. And needless to say, we didn't like each other at the time, which I'm sure that all the fans knew that. And I'm sure all the fans didn't like each other either. So, but the funniest thing about hockey and the greatest thing about hockey is when you retire, you become friends with a lot of these characters that you play against. And I've had some great conversations with Chris Neal and Chris Phillips, and I'm sure that those guys didn't like us at the time either, but we've actually became pretty good buddies going to a lot of these alumni events together.
I loved your tweet when Chris Neal retired. that was great. Any relationship with Daniel Alfredson by any chance? Have you talked to him post retirement?
I haven't seen Alfie actually. I think that he does a lot of stuff close to Ottawa. The boys, the Chris's, like go across the country and did a bunch of work with us with Scotiabank, and that's how I got to know them fairly well. And there's always that first intimidation thing when you're running into somebody that you've gone to war with over the years. But what two great guys to represent their organization from a standpoint of going across the country and talking about the Ottawa Senators brand. I think they're just great, cool dudes. And but to go back to the Alfredson, I haven't got an opportunity to talk to him or anything. But listen, I will say this. I lived by the sword. I died by the sword. And I didn't I wasn't the most gentle guy on the ice. So I don't hold any grudge towards anybody that I ever played against from a standpoint of whether they got me or didn't get me. So I was fortunate enough to play in the league for as long as I did. So I listen, I got a lot of respect for Daniel Alfredson and what he's done in hockey and what he's done for the Senators organization.
That's awesome, man. Honestly, Alfie, if you're watching this is where you need to call Darcy Tucker, and our show could be the reason why you guys are friends again.
Awesome. I don't think that we could say that we're ever going to be actual friends, but maybe have a golf game and I could try to dig into his pocket a little bit.
Fair.
Like you said, you weren't always the nicest guy on the ice. It's no secret you were kind of known as a tough guy, as a guy who, you would draw penalties, you would take penalties, you would throw the gloves down. Guys like you and Ty Domi were never the biggest guys on the ice. But, like, what do you think of the decline of the enforcer in the NHL? Like, nowadays, it's just not becoming a popular thing. But at the end of the day, if you were to play with a guy like McDavid, for example, nobody would ever touch McDavid, right? But nowadays, you don't have those guys. It's just not an NHL thing anymore.
Well, Cassian's doing a pretty good job. I'll give him a little bit of credit out there. And
Yeah.
He's done a pretty good job of riding shotgun with Connor. But listen, I can do without some of the stage fighting business, and I don't mind that that's kind of gone to the wayside. But at the end of the day, I miss the passion. I miss some of the personality of the game. I miss some of the drawing the fans into it with a little bit of a hatred towards some of the players in the other team. It seems like now these kids all grow up with each other, playing either minor hockey with or against each other, and they're all buddies, and social media has kind of put a damper on the hatred part of the side of things. And listen, I don't like seeing certain things in the game. I never did, but I had a role to play, and I tried to play it. And people didn't think fondly of it at the time, but things happen for a reason. I'm a big believer in that. And us playing the Ottawa Senators 4 times in the playoffs really made for an outstanding rivalry and great for both our fan bases. I have a lot of respect. Like I said, I have a lot of respect for that organization. I had a lot of respect for Brian Murray and the way that he managed that team and put it together. They were an outstanding hockey club. They just had to run into a pretty good darn team here in Toronto each and every year that was pretty physical.
Yeah, and one thing I really respect about you is you weren't just a guy who was on the ice taking runs at people and stuff. You weren't just an enforcer. You actually got points behind your name throughout your career. And nowadays, it's kind of that if you're going to be an enforcer, you need to be an enforcer who can skate and score as well, right? And
Yep.
There just isn't as many natural guys who can skate, play, and still enforce. So that's one of the things that I've always respected about you that I thought was really cool.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, and I honestly I kind of like to compare you, like, you're not as big of a guy as Ryan Reeves, but like Ryan Reeves, he could throw down, but he's also got some pretty decent hands, right? Or Alex Tuck in Vegas as well, same concept. tough guys, but they can score.
Yeah, absolutely. One of my favorite players in the league now is Tom Wilson. And, he grew up here in Toronto. I've known him since he was a little lad. And funny enough, when he's asked who one of his favorite players growing up, it was always me. And I really appreciate that. I think Tommy's got a game that translates to being able to put the puck in the net. He can play on any line, right up from the third line to the first line. He rides shotgun great for Ovechkin. And he fits in nicely with that group. So there's guys like that are still around the league. It's just they're becoming more of a unicorn than anything else these days in the National Hockey League.
It's on the topic of fighting. I was looking at your hockey fights page. You fought some scary dudes. Got Kevin BX on there, Derek Dorsett, Brian Boyle, former Sens Chris Neal and Jarkko Ruutu as well. And I even saw Dale Hunter down on the list, which I thought was pretty cool. I was wondering if there's any of those stood out to you, and if there's any like, oh shit, I bit off too much I could chew, or maybe the gloves hit the ice too early. Any of those moments you could share?
Well, I'll tell you this. I ran from Chris Neal from the start of the time he came into the league till the end of my career. That one fight, I think I had made a mistake and didn't know it was actually him. I thought it was somebody else. But I was lucky to get out of that one carrying my teeth in my mouth, and the shiners were not too big. So, you always going into those situations. I never fought in a stage thing. Mine was all built on emotion and in the course of the game. And somehow I found myself in some situations that I probably shouldn't have been in. But my dad always said to me when I was a young guy, when you're going to do it, you better be in it, because if you're not in it, you're going to get your arse kicked. So from the drop of the gloves, I was gritting my teeth and firing away.
Yeah, I guess it comes with the territory as an emotional player. Yeah,
absolutely. I think emotion is, and like I said, I think some of the emotion of the game has been lost in the friendship of it all. I really believe that, and I think sometimes as a fan, when I'm watching it, I'm like, man, I'd like to see a little bit more dislike for the opposition.
Well, and that's one of the things that bothers me today is you go on social media and you'll see, Crosby was skating with McKinnon and Brad Marchand, and this guy and that guy, they're in camp together, they're training together over the summer. And then you watch a hockey game and they're chirping each other a little bit, and you're like, are you going to text him after and ask him if he wants to go for dinner? Like, it takes away from the imagination, right? It's like that moment you found out wrestling was fake growing up.
Yeah, true. Exactly. I remember that moment vividly as a kid. I used to watch wrestling all the time, and I was like, this is not real. What the heck's going
on? Now, I'm going to assume you've had a crazy career, and feel free to get as clean or as dirty with this as you want.
Okay.
I call this segment, it's called Storytime. Can you give us a story? It could be a hotel room story, a locker room story, an in-game story, or anything. A story that's either unheard or just really fun.
Wow. Listen, there's plenty that we could probably sit here all night and tell stories about hockey players and bus rides and trains and planes and all those sorts of things that go on. I'll give you a pretty clean one. I was in Colorado at the end of my career, and we had a young kid come into our team, TJ Gagliardi. And when young guys kind of come in, you give them a little bit of a ribbing, but TJ liked to dress fairly promptly and abrupt, very tight and buttoned up. So he bought a pair of suede shoes, and he was so excited about them. And Adam Foote and I had taken the morning skate off that day, and we were going on the road that afternoon, and he had left his shoes in his locker, and we took a Sharpie and wrote a size 9 on the back of them, like bowling shoes, and he had to wear them for the whole road trip. It looked like he had bowling shoes on for the whole road trip, and everybody that saw him was like, man, dude, you forgot to take the bowling shoes off when you left the bowling alley. He was so upset about it. Like every night we went out for dinner, he's like, man, this sucks. Like, you guys had to do this to me. Like everybody's looking at me like I got bowling shoes on.
So he full blown knew that he had that, and you guys made him wear it as part of the hazing ritual.
No, he just only had one pair of shoes in that trip. He had no choice. and he was too cheap to go buy a new pair, so he wore them the whole trip.
I was gonna say he needs to take a trip to Foot Locker or something.
Yeah, exactly.
You played with a lot of hockey figures, great hockey figures through your career. Pat Quinn, legend Matt Sundin, with and for players and coaches I'm talking about.
Yep.
And even Adam Foote in Colorado later in your career. Anyone that sticks out as the most influential player or coach that you came across in your career? It could even go back to Kamloops in your junior days.
Yeah. So, listen, I got some pretty good people that helped mentor me through my career. Starting Kamloops with Don Hay. Don Hay was the most influential person in my young career when I was a young guy. And I got drafted by the Montreal Canadiens, and Shane Corson got traded back there. Obviously we're brother-in-laws now. I ended up marrying his sister, and we have a bond that goes beyond hockey. Started with hockey and goes beyond hockey. We're close, we're tight, we're like family. Lives right across the road from me here in Toronto. So that's another one. And then I wouldn't be the same husband, father, dad, person that I am today without Pat Quinn's guidance. Pat taught me a lot about myself. He let me be me. He never got in the way of me showing my personality, and I always appreciated that. Now, I'll give you the story about Alfredson hit. So Alfredson hit me in the playoffs that year, and then I think it was following year, or 2 years later, maybe even after the lockout, I had trained all summer, and I was super upset, and I was going to get back at Alfie for sure. And I think it was a 1-1 tie or 1-0 game in the third period, and I took a bad penalty on Alfie, and they ended up tying the game, and I think they ended up winning it in the shootout. And I was in my locker at the end of the game, and I got a tap from the trainer on the shoulder, and the trainer came in and said, Pat wants to see you in his office. And Pat never wanted to see anybody in his office. He wanted to get straight to the drinking the scotch after the game and smoking his stogie. So I'm like, wow, this must be something big. So I go into his office, and I'm pretty in shape at that point in my career. So I'm got my shirt off, and I'm just sitting in my core shorts. And he said to me, he goes, pour yourself a scotch, son. And I'm like, so I pour myself a scotch. He's got his big stogie hanging out of his mouth. He goes, what do you think about that play you made there in the third period to take that penalty? I'm like, well, Pat, listen, that hit, I broke my shoulder in the playoffs 2 years ago or last year. And he's like, let me stop you right there. He goes, Tom Laziak hit me with a dirty hit. I waited 12 years to get that goddamn bastard back, and you couldn't wait one goddamn game. What the hell's wrong with you? Now get the hell out of my office.
Pat Quinn, that man did more for hockey than most people imagine. And I'm going to assume there's so much behind the scenes stuff that he's done for hockey that people don't even know about. And
yeah, he's an amazing man, an absolutely amazing man, a hockey man, a family man. And Pat lived life, man. He was the type of guy that was a guy's guy. He was a hockey player, even though he was a coach. In his mind, he was still a hockey player. And guys appreciated that. Guys would have went through a wall for that man.
Amen. So I want to end it off with asking you a little bit more about the Battle of Ontario current state. So obviously right now, if you are on social media, you notice that the Battle of Ontario is mostly between fans. You watch an Ottawa Toronto game, and it's just like watching any other game nowadays. Now everybody knows that Austin Matthews and the TUCKERs are pretty much like a family, but everybody knows TUCKER doesn't care.
Yep.
Do you think playing each other, I think it's 9 times, and with Brady TUCKER in the roster, we can reignite the flame between Toronto and Ottawa this season?
Well, I will say this: Calgary and Ottawa are super lucky to have competitive people and competitive players that played the game the way those two boys play the game. I love watching them. I love watching the way they play hockey. And yes, I think that the Battle of Ontario is going to get back to the Battle of Ontario very soon, because when you have that many games against each other, it won't be just the fans that don't like each other. It's going to be the players as well at some point, and it's going to be fun to watch. Hey, listen, I always tune in when there's games like that. The old feelings come rushing back. The funny thing about COVID brought a ton of memories back for, I think, a lot of us, because they put those games back on TV and replayed them. And You know, to relive them with my kids and sit there in the living room and watch it. Man, I almost got teary-eyed a few times just, you know, thinking about it and being a part of something so special in Ontario, and two great teams that went at it and battled hard and had a lot of fun doing it.
And since then, both teams have kind of gone through a rebirth, and I think we're all kind of just waiting for that flame to reignite. We're all waiting for the Battle of Ontario to come back because, like I said, for guys like Steve and I, we grew up watching that, and that was the best hockey we've ever watched to date. And that's what we want to see, right? Not necessarily the blood and the teeth and
Yep.
and coaches getting hit in the face with pucks and getting black eyes. And
Yep.
I mean, we don't want to see all that. But at the end of the day, it's not just about the skill. It's not just about the speed. It's about the fun part of it is the natural rivalry, the hatred.
Yep.
You know, it's the competitiveness between two teams, between the fans, and you know, at the end of the day, I think that's what Ontario needs in order to get that hockey fire back.
I agree with you totally, guys. I like I said, I grew up in Alberta. I watched the Battle of Alberta when I was a kid, and it was lights out, the best hockey I've ever seen in my life. So hopefully we can get back to some sort of igniting of that flame when it comes to the Battle of Ontario. And, you know, listen, we've got some pretty good hockey players on both sides, so it should be interesting to watch.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you for joining us, Darcy. Again, I'm lucky to have gotten, I'm going to call you Leafs legend because that's what you are, on an Ottawa Senators podcast. So we truly appreciate it. And to our viewers and listeners, don't forget to like this video and subscribe. Again, Darcy, we thank you for your time, buddy.
I appreciate it. And make sure when I show up in Ottawa that you let me into the city boundaries. I like Ottawa. I like the city of Ottawa. So no hard feelings, and had a lot of fun over the years, and hopefully you guys did too.